Oh crap! Are we live? I was supposed to. That was all NDA. So
What's going on, Workforce? Brian, Chris, and the Steam Deck right here. And we're going to be talking about Final Fantasy XIV 6.11a, especially because Chris texted me on Friday and it says, turns out 6.11a was a little bit of a weird patch. And we were going to talk about it because at first we were even caught off guard. Just as like, if you guys have been seeing our coverage just last week alone, it was like, hey, okay, this is new. This is a PvP update, and they made Black Mage go completely God mode, which everybody was like, yoshi-p kind of looking the other way. I was like, oh, Black Mage, gotta please the boss here. But then essentially they apologized for that. Like within the span of a week, it's like, hey, here's an update. Oh, our bad. And I don't know how about you, like just as an overview, Chris, like do you feel like this has been post Endwalker kind of a season of apologies? Because we keep having. Like if we started tracking yoshi-p's apologies over the course of his career, the majority of them overwhelmingly have happened within the last 3 months. But what are your thoughts? You texted me this, and so let's let you have the floor.
this one feels avoidable. This one feels like Brian and I went out to dinner with our wives.
Love his
and
analogies.
we ordered four entrees to the table. And then they brought just Brian's out early. No, like his finished up early. So we just brought it out early. And we're like, I mean, that's weird. Like, you didn't have to do that. I mean, he's going to wait on us anyway.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's weird. And then they come out like 2 minutes later, like, oh, actually, yours is wrong. And it's like, well, why didn't you take the extra time to, like, check it before you had time?
Yeah.
Like, 6.15 is in June. Like, nobody told you to put out 6.11a. You did this. So for them to then be like, oh yeah, that wasn't ready. Well, duh. Like of course it wasn't ready. It should have been 6.15. Now that being said, like my wife works heavily within logistics and production across like multiple disciplines, and that's what she does in the construction industry. And she says, like, when I was describing this to her, she goes, I will tell you that if we had to issue a drawing set and it was across multiple disciplines and it was all going to the city on the same day, and there was one area that we were less confident in, there were more moving parts, I would rather have it in its own issue, either 2 weeks before or 2 weeks after. Just because when you're trying to juggle all these things, it's really easy for that one that takes that extra care to drop down to just the standard level of care, and then something slip through. So like, she kind of was like, no, it makes sense to me that you would have a point XA that is just like, hey, can we all just be focused on this one thing today? That way, if there's issues with it, we're all here and we're all focused on just it and nobody's worried about their thing. But as somebody that's covered 14 for a while, it's like, but they don't do this with anything else. Like they didn't do this with the duty support system. They didn't do this with, like there's all these other things that you would think are a very technical moment, and they don't do them. They do it with things like data center visit and world visit. They kind of get their own patch, but they get their own patch and we're told they're going to be their own patch.
But also a numbered patch with like, that's where it was like,
it's numbered. This wasn't like this
wasn't numbered. This wasn't it like 6.112. Yeah. It's like, okay, well, interesting. And so like the thing that I look at this is like, well, it's a good lesson learned, right? Like, it's like, okay, listen, like, they had some ideas, they tested them out. And the thing is, like, if you literally look at it and say, imagine 6.11a was just like, oh, well received, no issues by all, then I would expect that maybe we start to see some of that, especially as it relates to PvP. Like, all of this stuff to put together feels like it's a very overwhelmingly positive response to the problem of, oh man, we made a really fun mode. We've really kind of created something that people are excited about, and we see that also in the numbers where non-PvPers are getting involved and actually having a good time. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, well, we need to make some adjustments, because he goes into massive detail. Like, there was like so much cool insight in his post that you covered it over on Gaming Kinda, I covered it over on Ginger GRPG, and this is us kind of coming together to discuss it. Which like their ratios of casual, hardcore, like extreme, and the win-loss ratio. So they're looking at the numbers and they're like, clearly Black Mage is at a 14%, difference from everybody else. We need to bring that
the top job.
Right, for the top job. So we need to bring that back up. Makes sense. Nothing in like on paper, I think went all that wrong. But then from a timing perspective, because it's like, okay, this had to be completed over 2 weeks ago, and then that was already submitted. And this, I think, has maybe some part to do with the fact that, like console is like when you submit something to the console, they have to go and do their checks on it. So you have to have things done ready. But then essentially in his letter, he announces the release date for 615. And then it's just like, well, you know, maybe don't have to do that. I don't think anybody was expecting it. And I wonder how much of it was in part of the longer dev cycle going to four weeks and not wanting to have to worry about, like, you know, PvP specific adjustments, because PvP in and of itself is a whole different beast from PvE. Like, they can make these adjustments and not have to worry about impacting PvE, which I know a lot of games that do both PvP and PvE will frustrate the player base when you make a fix for a PvE thing and it breaks PvP or something like, and vice versa. We've seen that happen in Destiny all the time. And so I wonder how much of that is them kind of like tailoring it, how much of that was a response. But all in all, it's like, when you texted me this, I was like, yeah, this was a weird one. And I think it's weird because it didn't land as intended, but that's just my thoughts. What do you think?
I mean, imagine something with a weekly lockout, like a Savage. They break it, and now your group with your group comp can't clear.
Yeah.
Can't clear. And you just lose weekly lockouts. And it's like, oh, they'll fix it at some point. Yeah, but I'm supposed to be getting a piece of gear every single week between now and then, and I can't. So, like, the PvE, they have to be very careful. Can you imagine a DSR group? They're progging 4 hours a week, 6 hours a week. That's what they have time for. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, your group isn't going to be able to continue any meaningful prog until 6.15 because they nerfed 2 of the jobs that's in your party, and that sucks by accident.
Yeah.
And like, oh, we didn't mean for it to be like that. So like there was some, I did see some comments just kind of saying like, well, how come they didn't adjust PvE? And I think you bring up a valid counterpoint to that, right?
Yeah.
You cannot swing PvE as readily as you can PvP because the stakes are higher. I know to PvP people, those wins and losses matter, but at the end of the day, you can't rank down. You can only go so far down. You kind of get to the bottom of a tier and you hang out there. You can progress up that tier with any job, and to get a job up, you just have to be level 30 on that job. So it's not like, oh, well, they nerfed Ninja in Savage, and now I have to switch to Reaper, and I don't even have the gear for Reaper.
Right.
Like, no. You just need to learn to play Reaper, and you're good. So there is a lower barrier to kind of getting around these changes if they made some jobs feel like worse by extension. To the people that have said like, well, they picked his job. They overbuffed a job. Now he does play this game, so like eventually it was going to be his job, but like that is drastically overlooking all the times that like warriors come out of a patch on top, dark knights come out of a patch on top, white mages come out of a patch on top, like any other job, and nobody says anything. The moment it's black mage, it's like, well, that's Yoshi-P's job.
Yoshi-P.
Okay, well, like that's just 5% of the time. It's going to be Yoshi-P's job that comes out on top. Especially in a damage-based mode, to have Samurai and or Black Mage come out on top in these changes would be really easy to accidentally do, just because they are damage inherent. Like that's their personality type.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, oh, what's your utility? I punch really hard. Yeah, but like, what do you do that like helps augment the way other players play? No, I just punch really hard. Like they're not doing anything other than just like, what if you just did more damage? I don't know if any of you have ever played D&D with anybody like that. My brother's like that. When you play D&D, he's like, I'm just going to kill things. Okay, but what are you going to do to like help the party when we're like in town? Well, I'm going to be really good at killing things. I don't think you're understanding the question. So I just thought it was weird. I thought it was a weird patch because we don't get lettered patches.
We haven't for a long time.
Rule. Yeah.
Well, because it's like, I remember 1.0, like we had a lettering patch numbered system. Yoshi-P changed a lot of that, and when he came on, on board, et cetera. So which was always kind of interesting. It's like, okay, like more in line. And that's what I was like, hey, I was like, all of a sudden I was like, okay, well, I mean, will we see a B? Well, like it's like, all right, it is what it is on that. Now I saw Crash
out of numbers.
I saw
like,
Gavin.
Why didn't they use 2 or 3 or 4? Like you're not out of numbers.
Right. And you know that 5 is coming, so it is what it is on that. I do I see that Gavin says PvP will never be more than side content though, and I would say I would disagree with that. Culturally, there's kind of 2 parts to it. Like right now, like going on YouTube and in the Final Fantasy XIV community, I've seen Zeppla talk about this. I've seen a lot of content creators talk about this because just like we were talking about in the summer and the fall, what ultimately happens is that people are going to play through the story, and then they're going to go on hiatus until a 0.4 or 0.5. And that's the cycle of Final Fantasy XIV. It's in its biggest and most excited state, pre-expansion, expansion, a little bit post-expansion, and then it goes into what we just call the normal content cycle. So a lot of people who maybe came in with the hype of Shadowbringers and was like, oh, this is so incredible. Oh my gosh, Endwalker, holy smokes. They start hitting this wall, both content creator and player. So right now we're seeing kind of what we call the season of burnout happen within Final Fantasy XIV. PvP is the gap that actually solves that problem, because you don't have to be into PvP, but there are players who are into PvP. And this is a great way to kind of help give them constantly changing content. You know, it's not the same, structured and curated fight of a PvE, which essentially does have a lifespan on it. The fact when people tell me that they've run a certain raid 1,000 times, I have to know who they are, because that is a skill. Like, there's a talent that they have there that I don't possess. But PvP is always changing. And so, yes, the map might be the same, or you have a wide range of maps, but you get this sense of this free-flowing sandbox, changing up your build, having to adjust your strategy on the fly to adjust to another human player, that I think essentially is going to be changing. So it won't be forever considered that side kind of content. I don't think it's going to be the main attraction. It's not going to come in and say, oh, I only play this game for the PvP. I don't think, unless they made some sweeping changes across the board, would we see that. But I do see it actually being an important pillar in people's enjoyment, whether if they choose to stay sub through the season of burnout before the next season of hype. And if they don't, that's more than fine, but that's the typical cycle. So that's my one thought on that. What do you think, Chris?
As a longtime story skipper, I was a story skipper till Shadowbringers. Mm-hmm. If you guys want to see me experience the lore, that's over on Gaming Lore, kinda. If you want to see my just reactions to lore and kind of as I hit these milestones, I check in, that's over on just gaming, kinda. And like, as I go through this process, like, I played this game from ARR to Shadowbringers as a story skipper. I will tell you that as a story skipper, I was always distinctly aware that there was not a like multi-tiered system of the content where there's 16 different levels and some are lateral. From my perspective, I always knew there were 2 tiers of content. There was MSQ, and there was everything else. And so as a story skipper, I was always aware that MSQ came first. And I know that because when a new patch dropped and I wanted to run the new Alliance raid, wanted to run the new raid, wanted to run the new dungeon, wanted to whatever, even unlock a new class, I have to press escape through a bunch of story. I have to do it. And so even if you want to skip, you still have to do it. There is no way to not do it. And so that has always told me that the message is, this is first and foremost. You don't have to take it seriously. You don't have to pay attention. I've seen Xeno get into it and then getting some criticism because he's been a longtime story skipper like myself. And he was starting to get passionate about it. And then people are coming out and they're saying like, oh man, he's just covering story for views. And it's like, I guess you can't win, man. Like, you didn't like story for a long time, so now you're not allowed to ever start.
All that is gatekeeping. That's all that is gatekeeping. And we have in every game community, and somebody was like, the community's fine. Typical people who just play the game and don't engage in social media, like, that isn't what we refer to. That's a category of gamer, but we're talking about the hyper engaged gamer who thinks, eats, breathes, dreams the game. That's what I refer to the community. And no game community is without any kind of gatekeepers. You're always going to find people who come in and will find any reason to dismiss your view. So basically, when you tell me that, all I hear is that somebody who doesn't like Xenos' personality feels that Xenos can't enjoy the game the way they do, and they're going to put any kind of suspected whatever. If he's enjoying the story, he's enjoying the story. Like, there's been people who've just enjoyed the raid, and people bullied them into doing the story, and then they've quit the game multiple times because of that aspect. It's like, let people just enjoy it the way that they want, and stop being a gatekeeper when it comes down to any kind of thing. It just annoys me, and because I see, I mean, people try to gatekeep us all the time, and they just get annoyed that I just don't give 2 shits. It's just like, moving on, like, here we go, going forward. Like, You could tell me whatever you want, you know, and that's maybe an issue more of social media because everybody, like, I can't tell within a comment, like, if that's a value, what I would consider a value-driven comment. Like, somebody has left 100 comments and we were having this dialogue versus somebody who can come in and just like
with the Mixer had. Right?
Yeah.
Where we could see somebody's like work to game community level. And like maybe you like gain some points for like each minute you watch and like how many months you've been subscribed and how many comments you posted. And just because what happens is somebody clicks on a title, they watch 0 seconds and they dump some just absolute trash comment in. I'm not talking like, hey, I have a question, or hey, I'm new to this game. I'm talking they just come in and they just rip the world open with just like, I had a bad day and I need everybody here to have a worse day to make mine better by comparison.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, it would be so nice if I could just be like, anything that has negative verbiage in it and has a community, has a engagement level below 0.5, just hide them. Like, I don't, like, they can still post them. They're welcome to post them. I don't need them to enter my eyeballs.
Yeah, you don't need that.
I don't need it.
And I see chat saying like some people feel that his personality is a bit toxic, and it's understandable that those people want to see him banned. And here's the thing, like, and this is
He's
the only
been suspended.
Well, he has been, because he did things that warranted it in that regard.
He's not meant to be like family appealing. Welcome to all.
But here's my whole view, my world view, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not saying that I'm right and if you don't agree with me that you're wrong. It's easy to avoid it. Like, it's just all right. Like,
a lot of his content, but I've never seen his channel be the only one live in the category.
Right. It's they're like, and I believe in choice, right? Like, I'm big on player choice. But that's why one of the things, like, we want more content creators, because I think that opens up people to have somebody who maybe they relate with more, or maybe they enjoy more, or, you know, it's like, because I don't want it to be just one voice. I just don't want it to be two voices in that regards. That's one of the things that we try to elevate marginalized voices within the community, of people who are like, I posted this on the forums and they dunked on me and I don't know why. Well, let's talk about that. Let's look at that idea. And people, they're like, oh, you're promoting this idea that's going to ruin my game. Like, no, this idea won't ruin your game. Like, it's not like even like the devs are going to sit here and say, oh, we saw Work to Game talk about that. Let's get it implemented. But I know that there's a belief that from a content creator perspective that you have a bigger pull within the devs. And I honestly, my experience.
Well, we don't stream at night because we're too busy running the Japanese dev studios. We're daytime streamers because, like, we actually work 24 hours a day, and then we remote in. We have a Zoom call that's about 12 hours long, 7 days a week, and we run the Japanese dev studios of actually all Square Enix. So Final Fantasy 16, Octopath Traveler.
We've just waited so long.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Surprise twist.
Oh crap! Are we live? I was supposed to. That was all NDA. So, like, to get back to my core point, which was like probably 20 minutes ago, is PvP side content? Yes, but so is Relic, so is crafting, so is gathering, so is honestly leveling anything that's your main job. The way this game doles out experience from Beast Tribes and from Wondrous Tales, experience as itself is a side piece of content. The act of getting Omni 90 is just a pursuit you can have. Does it make you better at MSQ? No. Do you have to do it? No. It's just content for content's sake. Because you can't play 20 jobs to perfection. So, like, the idea that, oh, I'm gonna have them all level maxed, why? Like there's no benefit. I'm doing it, but like I'm not gonna be good at all jobs. So, and you can't even, because of weekly lockouts, you can't even keep all jobs best in slotted. So, like, there's not even, you can't be optimal at all jobs. So the game inherently kind of bogs that down. So, like, is PvP just side content? Yes, but that is just side content in the way that all content is just side content. MSQ is the only thing that rises above that. And as a story skipper, like, I'm telling you that you can enjoy this game for all of the things that are just side content. You will have to clear MSQ. You can story skip to the current expansion if you want to throw money at the problem, but you're still going to have to hit escape through Endwalker.
Yeah.
And by the time we can skip Endwalker, you're going to have to hit escape through 7.0. So, the primary content is MSQ, and everything else is below that. And so there is an interesting topic, right? There's an interesting subtopic there, but not to derail for another 20 minutes, of which side content rises above the others. But you are very much just in you're just in the same big pot as everybody else. And so are there stronger ingredients in that pot? Absolutely. But it is one big pot. And different parts of that get updated at different paces. You know, as we move into 6.3, suddenly the word deep dungeon is going to mean something. Yeah. At some point, Blue Mage is going to come back and just be like, oh, all these people just want to do Blue Mage content. Well, it's because it's been updated, but that'll die off again. And so all of this side content effectively becomes seasonal to some degree. I mean, like relics, for example, seasonal. That's seasonal, like warm weather is seasonal in Texas. It's most of it. Like the relics are most of the expansion, but they're not all of it. We're kind of in the brief winter of the relic season.
Who knows also what the Island Sanctuary is going to
Criterion Dungeons.
Criterion Dungeons. And that wasn't even anything announced at the FanFest. So it was like, all right, like cool. Can't wait to see what those are about. So I think essentially, like, when it comes down to it, like, enjoy the side content you want, but back to the core topic at hand. Yeah, I think 611A was definitely a misstep. I think they made a mistake. It was weird, and I think essentially what will be interesting to see in the next year, do we get another patch like it, or is it just going to fall within the normal structure? I could see a hot fix, like if something was truly like broken, but we haven't seen anything truly broken come into the game since like that one bug that was they were doing the limit breaks with.
They happen. Those aren't big numbered patches though. They're just hot fixes on the lodestone. Mm-hmm. The fact that it got a number and then that number had a letter, like the whole thing just felt weird. It wasn't a hot fix. It was too big to be a hot fix. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a content patch in that like it wasn't numbered like a content patch. We do get things other than .x and .x5. Like we have 6.11 and we have 6.18 in this particular cycle. Yeah. Those are not atypical numbers. But the fact that this didn't become some like 6.13, and maybe they didn't feel it was enough, right? Because it doesn't have any cosmetics, doesn't have any housing items. You can't be a numbered patch without housing items. So like maybe that's what it is, but it just felt like, to me, it felt like, why not sit on it till 6.15? And they're like, well, we were locked in as of May 6th. That's fine. Like, do you know how nice it is to have something that's due like a 10-part project and have one of the parts just kind of like packaged up and ready to go? And like, yeah, like maybe we could keep working on it, but like we still have all these other things. So like there is something nice about saying like, okay, like our progress bar has like a part of it's done. Yeah. So I don't know. It just felt weird.
Well, guys, to wrap up the video, if you guys are curious, posted my impressions of the Steam Deck over on Ginger Prime. I have my specific Steam Deck Final Fantasy XIV impressions, because I've been spending a ton of time beating Chris at the Race Omni because of the Steam Deck, and those are on Ginger JRPG. Those videos are live for you, and I'll have some stuff on New World and more. Chris, you got anything you want to plug? You want to take us out?
No, I mean, I'm just excited to be back at it. Last week, I spent my first time in World of Warcraft lore, and I'm trying to pursue it like I do Final Fantasy lore. And actually, I had some delightful time. So just kind of a future plug. We're going to be running some of that over on Gaming Lore, kind of mixed in with 2 Final Fantasy posts per day. And it's voiced and it's conversational. It's treated kind of like Final Fantasy content. And it's done for the starting zone. So there's some interesting kind of point of comparison there, because I've been told over and over that like I cannot like WoW lore, and from that gatekeeping tangent we went on earlier, there was something about that did not make me like WoW lore. Something about the way it was phrased was not like, oh, thank you for the warning. It wasn't like, hey, you're walking up to a restaurant and like, hey, just so you know, the wait's an hour. Mm-hmm. And then I'm like, oh, well, let's just go somewhere else. Like, it wasn't held like that. It was like, you can't like this restaurant. And I'm like, well, now I kind of have to try it, right? Yeah. And so I've been enjoying that, and that'll be running pretty soon here.
Awesome. Guys, thanks so much for watching. Hopefully you have a great one. We'll be with you this week talking some news and discussions and more. So it's going to be a fun week. So stick around, stay tuned, and hopefully we'll see you in our next video. But until then,
take care.